Lah, bas, di ba ko maklaro? Pressure dahil.
Okay, good morning everyone.
Morning, sir.
Morning.
Sir,
Morning, Des.
okay, I will be your facilitator for this activity. And as we all know, we must read our reading materials, um, specifically revolving around the works of Plato, which is the Republic. And our discussion for today will be about us immersing ourselves with this lesson and trying to get insights as to how the ancient people understand what justice is, what morality is, what should the government be, and what set of society must be achieved as best achieved. Now, I'd like to start our discussion with a review of what we have read from our reading materials. Now, who would like to share with us what was the narrative of the Republic all about? What was the story there? Okay, let's start with
It is authored by Plato. No,
Okay.
Coming motivated si Plato, nag-motivate siya tungod ni Socrates tungod sa iyahang bitawng passion o sa iyahang wisdom ni Socrates. So the Republic, from what I have understand, talks about the goodness of life, morality, what is justice, and what is honorable for the society.
Yes. Honorability or honor to one's, or as how they call it, virtuous life is what the core contention of the past. And now it still has been, but we may have changed how we perceive it or how we put a terminology onto it. But essentially, that is what we are still seeking for. Now, I'd like to start our immersion with this material with a question that what do you think is the difference between Plato and Aristotle as a student? What do you guys think? I mean, Plato is the student of Socrates. And Aristotle is the student of Plato. Now, is there a difference between the two of how they are as a student? And if there is a difference, how does this difference takes play in how they formulate their ideas? Who would like to give their point of view? What is the difference between Plato and Aristotle as a student?
I have a point. I'd like to emphasize the difference between Aristotle and Plato. However,
you
it's
may.
only limited. So when we talk about Aristotle as a student, his ideals is rooted towards connecting the political structures to the human nature. Like for instance, if you were to explain what justice is, he will then elaborate that justice is somehow rooted towards the nature of a person. Whereas if you compare to Plato as a student, he somehow, it was emphasized in the book that the canon started when Plato separated himself from Socrates. However, Plato still continues to, in a sense, glorify and continue to pass on the ideals and beliefs of Socrates. In that sense, I'd like to re-emphasize that as a student, Aristotle somehow is more leaning towards contemporary ideals, whereas Plato, as a student, is leaning towards restating the ideals of Socrates.
Okay, he raised a point that there is a difference as to how they formulate or stipulate their ideas. Now, if we read the Republic, or if we read most of the written works of Plato, we sort of notice that Plato has a huge admiration for his teacher Socrates, and we see it obviously because most of his ideas are expressed through the character of Socrates. We see that um, most of his written works revolves around dialogues, around conversation between people and Socrates. And there we get from that conversation the idea of what Socrates as Plato as Socrates, and uh, uh, those conversation tries to reveal something between those conversation. Now, who would like to share with us what how did the story begun? How did the story begin? Because if you read the Republic, it is said that the story itself has enormous symbolism, that a single interaction can have multiple symbolism, multiple references to something, and there are also a sort of foreshadowing to what they might have, to what they may have idealized or realized even just from the start of the chapters or from the start of the story. Now, who would like to share with us how did the story begin? How did the story of Republic begin, or the story in the Republic began? From this group? Even just a little bit. What was the core scenario there? We see that we read that Socrates and along with his scholars, or along with his mentees.
Yung brother.
Mentees. Okay, mentor man siya. Mentees. Di ba? Mentees. So, dili kita ma-tense, guys. Kita naman diri.
Start atong conversation nila sa atong
Perius.
Piraeus. In the city of Piraeus. Right? So, what was going on there in the city of Piraeus? Or the polis?
Sabi nag-form sila festival in which na si Socrates is, di ba, maglakaw na unta sila, tas merks iyang mentors man tayo, young listeners is merks silbi nag-push siya na, diri sa lantaw na to ang events day sa festival, in which na mo dito si Polymarchus ba to? Kasi si Polymarchus nag-host siya sa ilahang balay, like dito sila magtambay while the wait sa festival na mahitabo. Dito din nag-spark ang ilang conversation sa dinner, in which na naghisgot sila about their ideals, in which na unsay pagtuon nila sa justice, and so on so forth.
Okay. That was pretty much it if we read the first chapters of the Republic. Now, there is an importance on how it started. Why? Because, come to think of it, Socrates idealized that people who are knowledge-seeking people is different, right, to those who are the guardians and the producers, or those common people. Now we see that Socrates, as a philosopher himself, come down, step down, step down to meet the people. And what do you think is the symbolism? What does this scenario implies? What does it try to reveal on how Socrates formed his ideas, or how Socrates see the world? The Republic has many foreshadowings, right? Before the story even started, the ideas was already there. It was even said like that the story began when Socrates come to the people, to the common people, and shared his ideas. Because Socrates at that, philosophers at that time were were rarely seen by the people, right? Because they were isolated from the world. They were at the top, contemplating, forming ideas, doing conversations, and really just doing what philosophers do or people who seek knowledge do. And we see there from the first chapter that he comes down with his mentees or his fellow scholars, and they wanted to see the celebration that is going on the Piraeus, right? They wanted to see the fireworks festival, a sort of fireworks festival, right? Like a very fun and chaotic celebration that people there have. But they were interrupted along the way, and they met who? Polymarchus, and they were invited to
his house.
the house of his father, which is Cephalus. And they were invited there. Now, essentially, Socrates and his fellow men didn't really wanted to go to the house of Cephalus, right? I mean, they already have set their mind to a certain activity, which is to go to the celebration. But Polymarchus insisted. He said that, no, you must go. Right? Because if ikaw daw makakita kag someone nga pasayra nimo makita, gusto jud nimo maka-jamming. Pero how do you persuade someone if they don't want to listen? That was the question. How do you persuade someone to believe in you without them, even if they don't want to listen? How do you do that? Well, we'll see from the conversation that they have.
But aside sa kwan kanabitawng ng gusto ni Socrates, ato pong i-highlight nga nganong mga young man yung gusto. Na di ba kuan kinsa may ga invite niya. Those are young. Polymarchus, si Thrasymachus, and the other men, no, but nganong mo sunod man si Socrates? Nganong mo appeal na po Socrates dito? Is it because gusto siya sa mga young, or is it because na siya mission, which is to discover the minds of the young towards that wisdom?
Okay. Actually, that is very insightful, no? He mentioned that was he obligated, 'di ba, to share his wisdom? And we see from the allegory of the cave that the person who got out from the cave must go back and what? Administer the people. And Neil wanted to ask, bakit mga young people ang iyang gusto nga kaistoryahon or ang iyang mga kauban? Well, Cephalus was not a young person, right? And this is how the story went on to the house of Cephalus. And that is why Socrates asks, how does it feel like to be an old man? To be in an old age? What do you think was the response of Cephalus? What was his response as to how it feels like to be an old man or to be in an old age? What was his response? Hello. Kasi ingon ni kasi response ni ano, di ba nana sila sa balay ni Cephalus. And
Dira ning sugod ang story of justice.
their story the sugod ang
The concept of justice.
they started to realize or conceptualize what is justice. Pero the response of Cephalus was that it was okay. I mean, mas na-relieve gali siya no na Tigulang na siya kay ngano.
Wala na siya.
Kay ngano.
Wala siya. Di na siya.
Kaya ngano na relieve man si Cephalus nga old nana siya sa old age niya.
Wala na siya i-chase. Like,
Wala
siya ng woman.
yes, wala na siya i-chase. Nganong mag-chase man ta sa mga butang kay natay attachments, right? Natay mga attachment, natay gusto nga makuha or natay gusto nga ma-experience from the world. And the ancient people or the Greek people, or as the story goes, as the story implies, they call it an erotic man, right? Those people who wanted to experience the world or who is very explorative, very experienced man, an erotic man. That was it, right? so ano si Cephalus nga, okay lang man mahimong kuan, even better pagali kay wala na kay attachment from the world, right? Ang gusto na lang nimo buhaton at that age is to do good deeds, to do good,
To repay.
and to repay ba? Repay or sort of atonement from your wrongdoings, right? You correct or at least try to do good because at that age very important daang nga ma-cleanse ka from the wrong deeds that you've done from when you were at the young age, and to also do sacrifices to the gods, right? This is a very kind of religious and spiritual stance of Cephalus. Now, makita pa ba nato ni na sort of mentality sa mga tao karon in the contemporary world? Napa ba yung mga Cephalus na mga tao sa atong kalibutan karon?
Laban sa mga tiguang.
Mga tiguwang.
I think for me is mag-provide lang kog insight ha. So, as Neil said na si Socrates is iyang mga listeners is mga young halsa. And atong pagtipok nila sa balay ni Polymarchus, ang isa ka big question is nganong si Cephalus, unsa to inyo? Cephalus kay nganong siya o nagipangutana about the concept of justice. So, sa ako lang, so for me is because he is seen as an old man with many experiences but pagpangutana dayon ni Socrates kang Cephalus is wala siya ni totally agree sa perspective ni Cephalus. So what is the purpose of that? Nganong iya pa manggipangutana if iya mo silbi gisahon ang
Diba?
iyang opinion. So for me is diba namgi mga young listeners out of na time. For me is maong ang iyang target young listeners is for them to know that even the perspective of a experienced man, an old man is flawed yapon. Like even though na old na siya, nagana siya na experience, nagana siya na agian, is iyang perspective is not truly accurate sa ilang time. And even the perspective of a young man is truly not dili pod accurate sa ilang time. For me is marag ang goal bitaw ni Socrates ato is gipakita ang lain-lain na perspective, even though dili gyud accurate or even though flawed gyud, is nagipod point ang ilang perspective, pero ang iya lang is kada perspective na iyang gipakita, gipakita na sakto siya in for their morals, pero in this perspective of others is mali pod siya. More
Okay,
pod
okay.
ang insight.
This is a question of whether applicable pa ba ang mga ideas before sa konteksto nato karon. And that is also a very important question, right? Sige. That is kanang conservative ideas versus the contemporary ones or sort of the liberal ones,
Okay,
diba? We see that from the book. So thank you for that. Yes, so how did Cephalus liken what, let's just assume what his view of justice is? How does he see it?
His view of justice is more rooted towards us all people as borrowers and lenders, and that we need to pay off what we owe, pay off the debts, and pay off what is due.
What is due, right? And it's sort of like a bookkeeping.
Yes,
Like
bookkeeping
asa to kung mga
concept.
nabuhat nga ako dapat mo to nga akong i-amend or sort of
Repent.
to repay.
Repent? Okay.
Repent. Grabe po ng repent.
Very religious ka tayo.
Grabe na po. Pero those were the ideas, right?
Yes.
And even though tama pa tong giingon na nga nangutan na gyapon si
Socrates.
si Socrates, even though wag na siya idea nga flawed yun niya ingon. Like he see him sort of foolish at some point to some degree nga nga siya ideas pero di na siya into it.
Totally.
Daghay nga na tao. Pero yeah. And the conversation of Cephalus and Socrates ended when he went out because he had something to do, and his son Polymarchus continued the conversation, or more of
Provided
really
a new insight.
more important interlocutor of Socrates. Now, how did his son Polymarchus continue the conversation? What was his ideas then?
So, katong iyang theory na ang true justice is that you give the good people what they deserve, which is good things, and you harm the bad people.
One is idea of justice
Yeah.
is doing good to your friends
Yeah,
and
and
doing
doing-
harm to your enemies.
Okay. Now, from that point of view, would you agree to Socrates na medyo foolish tong idea ni Cephalus?
Yeah.
Ni Cephalus?
I know Cephalus.
Ni Cephalus? Oh, buwan sa si Cephalus kay Jesus na beto ni Polymarchus, right? May dugang siya idea niya. From the idea of Kuan, do you think justice is about repaying what you have done to others and doing good? Do you think it's like bookkeeping? Why? How do you disagree with it?
Well, I think kanang perspective is more on a Christianic way because mo na ginatin siya to in the Bible na when something gives to you, you need to repay back. However, when it kay atong kan mo karon is in between justice itself, that means naadyo yung mga kuan bitaw, evil thinking ang mga tao which dili kay nato makuan. Ang example sa book di ba kay if this person goes insane, willing ba nimo siya nga kuan ibalik unsa i-repay ang kuan di ba weapon?
Right.
What if ang thinking ni Socrates is more likely a neutral good way bitaw.
Yes.
Like kabalo siya outside kuan. Kung siya mali dapat din na himuon. Muna ang ginapasabot niya nga dili not all cases nga kailangan to i-return nga for the own good of dapat i-own good para to society itself.
Okay. And that was the main criticism of Socrates to the idea of Cephalus, right? Because sige, ingon nato nga kung unsa ang ibalik nato ang mga dapat nato ibalik sa atong mga higala. Pero what if kung dili na siya the same person nga
The same person you
nga
owed something.
nga imo na ka-encounter before, he goes insane. Would you still give that back even though there is a risk of danger? There is a risk of harm. And that was the main flaws of the idea of Cephalus. Because we are self-interested. And even though it is rightfully theirs that we must give back, we still consider ourselves kay what if pag ibalik na to wala daytoy basin ma back to you. 'Di ba? Back to you, or like it poses harms to us. And sustaining that, the idea of Polymarchus was that we do good things to our friends and we do bad things, or we harm our enemies. How did Socrates challenge this idea?
Naman siya duha ka buok na rebuttal na perspective ni ko.
Regatan.
Lagi do na naingon. First is how do you really identify who is good and who is bad?
Yes.
Yes.
And ang kaduha pod is
What if
is it morally correct to harm a person whether or not he is good or bad? Di ba? Mao man to yung
Yes.
duha ka kuan. And for me, naga po flaw ang katong perspective ni Polimarcos, even though na like kung paminaw ni mo ang perspective niya, morally correct man siya, is kay mo do magka-good sa imong friends, tas mo harm kasi mga enemies. Pero if i-generalize lang nato, is it really good to harm a person whether or not they are good and bad? Like maugid ang point ni Socrates, if good ka na person, mo do ka good pud sa imong friends. Pero if good gid ka na person, nganong mo harm man ka sa bad? Like in ana bitaw, are you still considered a good person, or nagpaka-good lang ka on the outside pero the inside ang imong huna-huna kani ako ni siya i-harm kay para nako bad ni siya without knowing na bad pagid ka ni siya, or basin imong pananaw bad lang na siya para sa imuha. Like,
Right?
mm,
Because the idea of Polymarchus was all about friends and foes.
yeah.
You determine who is your friends and who is your foes. Pero what if you don't really know who is your friends
Yeah.
and who is your foes or is your enemy?
Na isa pa, napoy possibility nga kanang friend nimo is dili mao ang good.
Yes. Whether
Diba?
that friend is not good.
Yeah.
What if you consider this as a certain person as good or your friend, pero he doesn't considers you as his friend? What if ingan ang case? There is a flaw with that idea.
That concept.
And how did the conversation went on?
I think Polymarchus emphasized that true friends are good. The true friends are good friends, and if that friend is not good, then he is not a true friend.
Okay.
Nato yung
Yes.
Diba? Sa taon.
Like if that friend is a good friend, then he is a true friend. However, if that friend is not a good friend, then he is not your friend.
Pero again, mo ano na punta nga, taro be, imong friend nga, ano nga,
Or you can say
Yeah.
that you're friends just because
Kung
that person is good.
makita ra ma-determine ra gyud nimo, the problem with that is ma-determine ra nimo kung good ba gyud siya or bad kung naay mahitabo,
Yes.
right?
Yes, yes.
If naay end.
Mm.
Kay dira ra nimo maano nga gi-consider long term nimo gi-consider siya nga friend. Tapos nakahimo siya kuan something nga naka-harm sa imo. Dira ra nimo siya at that point ra nimo na-realize nga bad friend ay siya. 'Di ba? Medyo kulangan ta sa pagkabuo sa unsa gid ay ang justice. Now, kita may ni sunod ni Polymarchus na ni kind of interlock with
Thrasymachus.
Thrasymachus. Who can tell me who
Marcos.
Thrasymachus?
Thrasymachus.
Thrasymachus. Who is Thrasymachus? What was he like?
He was
Assertive siya.
Assertive siya, di ba?
He was humble.
Sophist.
Diba?
He was a teacher, right? He was a
inana yung
teacher.
occupation, no?
And the thing with the people like Thrasymachus is that they engage in an argument for the sake of winning, but not for the sake of arriving to a certain truth nga actually good in its or kanang how do we say this, kanang fruitful bitaw na conversation nga nagyud kay makuha, nagyud kay ma-learn, or like kung dili jud ka makaingon nga mas better ni kisa ani nga makaingon jud ka nga this is the truth. And with that kind of character, what was his argument like? Di ba ana siya nga nasako siya ka Socrates kay ano po na si Socrates kay mangutan nga dili mo hatag og
Answer.
right answer, like definitive answer.
Yeah.
Ana siya nga mohatag ko, pero unsa may murag reaction taron ni Socrates nga sa ingato na character ni Thrasymachus.
Hindi ko ano yung maragi.
Stroke niya yung ego.
Koan.
Gi-stroke niya yung ego. Yung
Maragi na gi-praise niya.
Gi-praise niya, di ba? Ni step back siya and gipamubo niya yung kaugalingon. gipamubo niya ang kaugalingon. Siya nga,
Siya
oy,
na, ay, ikaw knowledgeable man ka. Usa man imong
oh, di ba? Di ba? Yan na siya, medyo ni-stick, ni pagamay sa siya, then iyang gi-praise nga, uy, ikaw, mas maayo man ka nga, mas knowledgeable man ka. So,
Teacher siya.
maybe makahatag ka sa amo kung sa imong insight. Pero sa iyang ingon, kinahanglag charge.
Oh,
ay,
Makailang charge. Kay,
kuan.
hindi libre ang ang answer. So, after that, diba, sort of delivery siya ni Jokor or sort of ingana. And what was his idea of justice, man?
30 minutes.
It's all about the advantage of the stronger. Good or justice is the benefit or sort of is decided by the stronger. And we have seen these ideas many times, such as the victors get to write what happened, right? Or people who have the power can decide what's going to be the laws, what's going to be what's going to happen in society, or what's they're going to impose into society. And how did what was the reaction of, or what was the response of Socrates to this? What was his question? How did he challenge Thrasymachus' idea? Or what was the main challenge of Thrasymachus' idea?
That regardless whether they are capable of setting those rules or laws, we are still benefiting from it.
Right? Even though, if ako, very self-centered ko, egoistic ko, na gusto lang na ako nga, tanan, akong gusto nga, mo na akong i-impose sa society. For example, may example lang naman, nga, even though, I thought nga para lang to, for my benefit lang to, himo-hinoon siya good for others.
Basta na yun.
Basta na yun. Basta na yun example. Na yun ng mga instances. Pero bitaw, how do we see it? How do we see this kind of idea? Nga people do certain things, or people in power do certain things for their own good. Pero,
Maka-benefit siya sa
maka-benefits
Maka-benefit ka punta
Pero,
sa constituents.
inadvertently maka-benefit siya to others. And how did Socrates challenge this kind of belief? Right. Kabalo daig ka kung unsa ang good for. Ang question is, unsa mo pagkabalo kung unsa daig ang good sa imo? Unsa mo pagkabalo kung unsa daig beneficial para sa imo? And having that idea nga, unsaon nimo pagkabalo, like let's just focus on interest ha, like what we really want. Because Socrates challenges the idea nga,
That we know what
dili
we want.
not all times kabalo ang mga tao kung unsa ang ilang gusto o unsa ilang gusto mahitabo sa ilang kinabuhi. Wala na time.
Sige lang. Padayon ng
30.
Ano na lang ta ka nang sabi kay fruitful kay conversation gid kay cut na lang or mo na focus.
I-edit na to.
Oo, edit na lang na to.
Sige. Pero sige. Do we really know what we wanted?
No.
No, nga na makaingon kag no.
No, because we are self-interested people. We are self-interested people. And also, that concept is a flaw of democracy, right? However, at the end of the Republic, I think it was Plato. It was emphasized that it is possible to know what we want if we seek the knowledge of what justice truly is. And in that sense, can we restore the flow of democracy?
Okay. That's a good point. And that was a point that was raised at the end, right?
Yes,
At the end of the book. Pero, we know that Socrates doesn't like democracy. And
Yes.
for that reason, right?
Yes.
Because people do not know
They really want
Just
what they really wanted, what their interests are. And if they do not want what their interests are, what's gonna happen? There are possibilities of
conflict.
what? Exploitation, people leading to something na they thought they're beneficial for them but turns out dili di ay. And also, how do we know kinsa ang stronger? And do we get the chance to be the stronger one? And as our current understanding, unsa day ang stronger? Unsa day ang stronger person? Is it just having the ability to impose your own interest or your own really just sort of the things that you wanted to impose on the society? How do you think of a stronger person? Na ba stronger by morality? Na ba stronger by how do we conceptualize stronger person? Is it by influence and power? Mas daghan kang kwarta, mas daghan kang ma-impose na interest nimo? What do you guys think?
Ito na siya yung capability.
What is the definition of the stronger?
Right?
You could be stronger by your wealth, by your wisdom, by your power, by your position, by your social status. But unsa pasabot nga stronger ni personalities? Advantage of what?
Yeah, right. And how do you know the advantage dito sa imuha? So yeah. Okay, let me ask you this question. Because previously from our materials before, it is kasi ito tong book ni Coulter. Unsa may ingon ni Coulter nga the best type of government?
Ay, lahi na ito. Paano ito?
Psychosocial
Power na
development.
ito. Power to.
Di, unsa man yang ay from our previous material, we understand that the most effective one, or sige, let's just say the most effective one kay ang unsa na sort of regime or sort of type of ideology, democracy, di ba? And what was his argument? Isa may yang ingon, nganong mas better man ang democracy among others?
Kaya democracy if democracy is flawed, di ba? It is flawed. However, if you compare democracy among all those regimes, it is the most suitable. It is where people can exercise their freedom, and it is where the regime that is most beneficial for the people. It is the most effective one because there has yet to be a regime that is more effective than democracy.
Okay. How do we know that it is effective? How do we know that it is? Unsa day nasa democracy? Like when we think of democracy, unsa day ang nasa democracy? Freedom. Liberalism.
I think effective siya kay
Solidarity.
equal opportunity sa tanan.
Di ba nag-equal opportunity ang tanan to voice out their political interests or their own interests? Pero if you speak of that to Socrates, unsa man possible na response si Socrates ana?
For ang ako ang maingon, ako maingon na is, diba everyone has a voice. So, para nako lang, ambot if na bring up ba ni siya sa book. Pero, justice, diba there's no true definition of justice man. So for me, ang justice is what the people think that is beneficial for them. So for me, that is justice. Na example, daghan kayo bata na tog by barangay, kani sila mo oppose sila sa opinion ani na barangay, pero na sila voice. So miski pag unsay opinion ani mo oppose ni siya, like dili ra gyapon silbi na ingon effective yun kay magkontrahay naman dayon sila kay ang ilaha nagsalig man sila sa thought na ay free opinion man ni, so dili miski pag mo oppose ta sa ilaha dili sila kabuot. Tas basta biya ikaw biya example ikaw na akay gituuhan mo stand biya giding ka ana di biya giding ka mo ingon na ay daghan man ni sila na naghahon na ginana dili na lang ko ana bitaw. Like for me, justice, diba? Justice is only for the beneficial of yourself. For me lang ha.
Okay. Sige.
Sige.
Sige, continue.
Ano dayon, I feel like na effective man ang democracy pero nagipon bitaw siya flaws bitaw, for example sa inana ng mga instances.
Okay. What I think you are trying to say is that there are diversity of opinions, man. And when there is diversity in opinions on or many interests, what's going to happen?
Conflict.
Mag-conflict, mag-contradict ang one interest from the other. And pero sa kaano nga problematic siya, right?
Kaya nang
How do you
Duterte,
decide kung kinsa nga interest ang imong paminawon? That's the main problem with democracy, right? Pero what's also beautiful, I mean,
beauty.
was something warag something sa mga nga to nga warag something mesmerizing sa democracy is that we get to put the people in power accountable, right? We get to persecute. Oh, I don't persecute. I mean, really, we get to make them responsible for their actions, right? Pero does this reflect the reality of the current times? Let's just say in the context of the Philippines, does this kind of idea reflect on our current times? Are people put accountable to their actions? We see it in the issue of flood control project. Those who are said to be accountable to it are not getting held accountable, and that is also a problem with democracy or a certain type of institution that upholds democratic values. Now, let's try to deviate from that. Di ba, mo jud ng opposition from what Socrates think. Pero let's now delve into what Socrates think of a better society. What does with his conversation with Glaucon and Socrates and Glaucon's conversation, they made a society they made a city from scratch, or city-state from scratch. And what was the idea of Socrates from that city? What are the components of those city? What does it comprise? Ay ruler, na ay
guardian o katong mga common folk.
na ay guardian, na ay
Producer.
producers.
Ang applicant.
And what was the comment of Glaucon to this?
Yes. City of Pigs.
When Arta?
Pigs and animals.
Okay,
Okay ra. Happy sa
go on. Sige. What was the comment of Glaucon to this? Sige, may munta, na ruler, na guardian to protect the people, na producers, na doctors, na certain individuals that are necessary to survival, right? I mean, if na ma-harm, na doctor to cure it or to take care of the health of that certain individual. Pero what was the comment of Glaucon to this?
Katong mangita jud ang mga tao og luxury, like mga
Right?
mga gamiton na
Kulangan siya.
nalinahanglan gyud.
Kulangan siya. And how does Glaucon see this? This kind of city from scratch. Boring.
Yeah.
Gilaiken para siya similar siya sa isa ka pigs. Katong mga pigs,
Pigs.
parang mga baboy.
Because
Baboy.
Ngano makaingon kang wala ra siya city of pigs.
Kaugtulog ito.
Di ba? Di ba? Like boring kaayo.
Like,
Same
walay-
routine rang mahitabo.
Grabe na purpose nga nung
Pigs.
ginabuhat na nimo ang giangay-angang like City of Pigs, merg kapulan ra kay mo ba kay mara tulog ka on
Diba?
tas
Like,
wala kay purpose na nganong
Ay,
nag-work
mahitabuan
mo
na.
ba?
Ka kasi mong room or dayon.
So also may gi-propose ni Glaucon. Luxury.
Yeah.
Kasi pasabot ni Glaucon aning luxury man. Luxury lang ba siya nga furnitures? Ano pa man?
luxury in a context of us people needing material desires. Like for instance, if we are to dine if we are to dine, we Glaucon emphasized that us humans dine and those pigs eat, and that in that context, he emphasized that us people, what makes us human is that we have interest that supersedes those idealistic interests that Socrates emphasizes. Socrates emphasizes, and those interests are material interests that Socrates condemns. And Glaucon believes that those materialistic interests that we have should be catered because that's what makes us human.
Okay. So there is now a contrast between humanity, or what is it to be human, and contrast to the nature of a pig.
Yeah.
Now, tama to, because pigs eat and we dine.
Yes.
Diba? Different siya nga kuan na state of nature sa atua. State of nature. Lahat basta nature. Lahat siya nature sa atua. Lahat ang humanity compared to pigotry. Pigotry. Sorry sir.
Pigness.
Pigmess.
Pygmism.
Pygmism. Pero bitaw, did Socrates agree to the idea of Glaucon?
He did agree, but it leads to conflict.
Right.
Yes.
Because if nanay entertainments or nanay sort of kanang something people can dwell on, na yun ay conflict na may tabo from other cities. So unsay kinahanglan? People to protect the people. So now let's focus on guardians. Kinsa ay para ka sa Socrates, kinsa ay dapat ang mahimong guardians? Spirited people. Kasi pasabot ni Socrates sa spirited people.
People who are willing to sacrifice their lives.
Yes. 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 Over the Cat's
Yes
eye.
na yes.
Yes.
Pero bitaw, mo na idea niya patriotic
Yeah.
as how we understand
Yes,
it, patriotic nga they are really willing to risk on their lives just to protect the
state.
city, the people. And for us to mold this kind of people, what should happen?
The moment they are born, they should be taught to be moral and virtuous as they also grow up.
Okay. What is going to be the life of a guardian man?
They should not have families.
If you are a guardian in the city of Socrates, God na bastos. Cut yan, sir. Pero bitaw,
Balik.
what's going to happen to you? What are you going to expect if you are born guardian?
You have no private property.
You have no private
You have no
property.
no family.
You have no family.
You have
You have
no friends.
you have no
Like,
friends.
no personal life ba?
You are isolated.
Courage of loyalty.
Really, nakafocus rin sa certain things ang imuhang life. Such as
Protect the city.
siguro training. Kaya 'di ba magbugal sila mag-training sila sa gymnasium? Basta dira sir. Dira sila mag-training. 'Di ba? There is how we call it kining indoctrination, right? Kaya nga tag indoctrination because they are really configurated to become a certain type of person. Pero if mabutang ka na situation man, would you enjoy that life? Without entertainment, without poetry, without music, without really having to experience how we want to experience romantic life. Would you want that kind of life?
No.
If you don't want that kind of life, why? Why do you not want to have that certain life?
So maghatag ko og example. So like in the soldiers of the military, grabe gruesome kay lahang training. Like no communication sa family for pila ka months. So yeah, if I was a guardian, okay ra sa ako na protect and serve like that. Okay ra sa ako Pero the fact that I don't have the will to have my own personal life, murag makawala sa ako ang courage na magpadayon ba. Kay like pareha gud gyapon sa military, okay ra sa ilaha, bahalag murag lagi spirited like mo sacrifice gid sila para sa mo serve. Pero napud gyapon mabutang sila utok na I will survive so I can see my family once more. I will survive kit para makauli kung makita ko sa akong asawa balik. Like na sila purpose ngano ila nang gibuhat nga sila purpose ngano magpadayon. Like kung ikaw
Okay.
guardian ka, wala kay pamilya, wala kay property imuha, like kung example, sa sige na ko protect, mamatay ko, ay okay na lang nako. Kay mo ra gyud sa riya unsa ba may na-align sa akong kinabuhi na wala man. Like ana ba?
So, for you, it's like, wala na source, or wala na
No
like,
source of
other,
motivation.
kanang other direction for you to enjoy life.
Yeah.
Because, di ba, very straightforward ang life sa isa ka guardian. Mamatay ka serving the people. And, is there a difference if you're a guardian? Di ba, babae si Ruela.
Ay,
If babae si if babae si Ruela and naborn siya as guardian, nabay difference ang iyang life kang Aldrin nga guardian?
wala.
Para ka Socrates, nabay difference?
Socrates.
Diba, equal iyang pagtanaw sa
Equal ba ang pagtanaw ni Socrates sa babae nga guardian sa lalaki? Ngano how? Nganong equal man? In what sense man siya nga equal?
In a sense that regardless of their gender, the application of being a guardian is only limited towards their role in protecting the city. So there's no involvement of sex or whatever that is required for the gender to intervene. Like for instance, we have gender to have sex, to have also interest, romantic interest. However, those are materialistic desires, and as a guardian, regardless of your gender or your sex, then you will not have those materialistic desires because it is embedded upon you since you were a child to grow to have the values that Socrates believes is suitable for a guardian.
Okay. Suitability. There was a question raised, right? Kitong, what if mag-training sila nga magkasabay?
Yes.
Okay, with suitability, is it still suitable? Suitable ba nga isabay sila? What was the what was the response of Socrates to this?
I think he condemns the idea of both gender doing that.
Okay. Right. Pero
Hindi ko pa doon.
pero orag dili siya gana
It's not appropriate.
dili siya inappropriate pero murag there is sort of kanang they must not see themselves as kuan from like other things like for a possible romantic partner
Yes,
pero as brothers and sisters,
Sisters, yes.
right? So if really you should just see your a person nga a guardian, fellow guardian as your brother or a sister.
But
Pero
isn't it-
diba, nagyapit siya contradiction kay
Di malik yan na ano.
diba, usabay, diba, there was a problem with incest.
Yeah. Oh yes.
Diba? Kay, you never know kinsa imong mama, kay imong
Kinsa imong-
papa, kinsa imong imo ra mahibayan kay kuan na sila, imo silang siblings. And a problem of eugenics. Right? Kay paon ang medyo kuan na baby, ipadako lang tong
Itong arangan.
katong arangan niya baby. Pero again, with as a whole, the city as how Socrates proposed it. Do you think this kind of city is achievable? And what is the problem with this kind of city if not achievable?
Idealistic wise.
Idealistic? Nga naman kayo tag idealistic?
Hindi siya practical na mag-buhay ang tao. That is why mo tinutugos niya si Aristotle.
Yes. Sa human nature.
Contradict si Aristotle.
Okay.
Human nature.
Dili na dapat mo we should focus on human nature. Usa day mabuhat sa tao jud.
It is in our nature.
Okay. Aristotle focuses on the nature good sa tao. Kay dili man gyud nimo makuha di ba sa isa ka tao? We are social animals. Sa to? Basta we are gregarious, right? Gregarious by nature. And if we separate, or if we try to deviate from that nature, what's going to happen? Or if we try to deny that that nature of ours, what's going to happen? We lose our
Moral
Sense.
standing.
Humanity.
humanity,
Yes,
we lose
morality,
our
virtuosity.
sense of self, basta sige, from the idea of Plato and Socrates, what's the main unsa gid ang difference, unsay contradiction man sa idea ni Socrates or ni Plato sa idea ni Aristotle, and how did Aristotle propose another kind of ideal city? Sige, pag-isipan natin yan.
Nag-propose ba si Aristotle of ideal city?
I mean, how,
I think regime ito og cycle.
okay, regime ug cycle, right?
Yes. Muna yung pure ato nga concept that utopian city is too limiting, and that if all states were to follow that kind of concept of a city, it would be flawed and somewhat neglecting the nature of being human.
Okay.
Sunod na ang good citizen, ang good
Yes,
person.
good
Okay.
citizen, good person.
Okay. That's a good kuan pod. Sige, how do you differentiate a good citizen and a good person? Or what is good? Really? Sige, let's start with a good citizen and a good a good person and a good citizen.
Kuan,
May difference?
na okay, a good citizen follows rules and regulations, while a good person is more on morally. Like, you can be a bad person, but you can be a bad person, pero you
can be a bad person,
pero
you can be
and
a
you
good
can be a good
citizen.
citizen.
Okay. Can you be a good citizen but a bad person? And how?
Yeah.
Sige.
Good.
Can you be a good citizen and a bad person?
Yeah.
Di ba
Yeah.
you can be a
No,
good
feel
citizen?
ko, no. Ay, sige. Ay,
Sige, let's start with
Di
her.
ba you can be a good citizen pero a
You
bad
can.
person if kantahay, di ba ka-follow ka sa rules na gi-impose, di ba? You will see as a good citizen kung follow ka, pero kuan if kanang bad, kanang can be a good citizen pero bad person if kanang ga-oppose gani ka sa law, like ikaw ang dili lang ganahan ang law, pero ang uban tao kay gasunod sila kay mo na ang murag standard nga society.
Okay, sige.
Hindi mo ko tawang words.
Let's kuan pa.
nawala na
Sige.
ko. Nawala.
Pero,
Sige.
okay, sige.
Nato siya example sa book about atong lifeguard gani.
Oh, a lifeguard.
Oo nga. Kuan sa tuingon ato nga katong basta if nay malumos, though bad person ka, in order nga like something nga may mga good citizen sa pananaw sa tao, imo to luwason
Yes.
ang kadtong nalumos. Basta ano siya? Ato ba siya?
Okay. Like there is a sort of duty nga imo,
Mm.
a will nga imo siyang i-save. Pero really, can you be a good citizen and a good person? What is good, Mandy Ay?
Isn't it rooted towards happiness?
Okay,
You can say
rooted
that
to
something is
happiness.
good if you're happy with it.
Okay, good daw siya tungkol kay happy ka.
Mm.
Ma-happy ka. Pero, what's,
Yes, more.
ha?
Isa daw?
Moral.
Yes, dira di anong morality.
If it finds you, for example, ani nga butang malipay ko, equate ba na siya as good?
Okay.
I think is good. The question is, kani nga kalipay sakto o dili?
Okay.
Is it morally right?
There comes morality.
Like
There's a
example.
morality like a two-way concept. Like for instance, a person can be moral on the surface and inside, because you can only be moral because, for instance, if I were to do things for the sake of for show, then I can be moral in the outside, in the external concept. However, if I were to do bad things, however my intentions were good, then I can be moral inside, like internal morality or something. Internal morality. But regardless, that's the concept. And that's the concept of morality where where Socrates, Aristotle, that siya, or Socrates?
Aristotle.
Aristotle emphasizes that a person's morality is rooted towards their intentions
Yes.
rather than on the surface of what they do, their actions.
Right? Because, let's say, for example, okay,
Guys.
let's,
Sige
okay,
lang.
Last na. Sige na.
last
Wrap up
example.
na.
Let's try to delve more on that. For example, giingnan ta nga mamunit og basura. Pero ako di ko ganang mamunit og basura kay ako di naglabay ana. Pero namunit ko, nipunit ko. Am I a good person? And am I doing the right or am I doing the good thing?
What's your context and intention? What's your intention? Are you doing
Ang context
that
kay gisugo ko nga mamunit.
Yes. And what's your intention? Is it for the betterment of the environment or is it for the sake of following the order?
Let's say na napugos lang siya.
Yes. If napugos na ka, then you are not a moral person.
Okay.
Kung ano siya, good citizen na siya.
Good citizen ka, pero
Ano lang.
Right, because there are times nga na ay performative goodness, right?
Yes.
Like what if gitabangan lang ta ka for the sake nga i-view ko nga maayo ko?
Yes.
Or what if gitabangan gusto jud ta katabangan pero ano yung good like morality can sort of there are a lot of views with morality pero as sticking to this what have we understood with morality or as a synonym or synonymous to justice? What really is justice for you? Para lang sa inyo ha, as following the footstep of those who come before you, what do you think is justice for you? Isa-isa ho na to.
go.
And ako ang end, ani na discussion kung saan justice para sa ko. Ikaw
Kung
una.
justice for me is kanagaling maka-benefit ang tanan tao equally. Or justice para sa ako. Okay, ikaw na
If
next.
daghan ang maka-benefit, mo na ang justice for you.
More on like, dili yung daghan, more on like tanan jud maka-benefit. Like,
Like total population ang maka-benefit.
Over naman sa...
Okay,
naman
better
sa-
idea.
Sorry ha, kung
Oh,
idealistic
let's
lang.
respect that.
Okay mo,
Pero we must challenge that as well. Pero we will not. Okay.
I believe that justice, for me, justice is something, for me, justice should cater my needs as a self-interested person. I believe that justice should cater my needs and my wants without the need to compromise other people's needs and wants.
Ay, okay. Ay, lahi mo dyan.
Adrenism na po ba yun?
Sa ka, repeat please.
I would like, for me, justice should be something that is catering my needs and wants without the need to compromise other people's needs and wants.
Okay.
Pwede mo ulit.
Okay,
That's
next
a good idea as
Denver.
well. Denver.
Ayun. So, I'm more like, similar ko Alvin, pero more lean ko ka kuan, si Marcos nga kuan, ka perspective. Because justice itself, kay need po siya po nag-power and justice, di ba? Oh, when it comes to power itself, na po kuan, namatay mga, gusto ko ni, lawful nga morality. Murag kuan na, ang flow ni kuan, flow ni Tracy Marcos, more like i-shift bitaw nga. Instead of power atong i-direct, ang morality atong kunaon. If this is good for the government, this is good for everyone, then this should be the kuan. This should be the justice that I should follow. Di ko mag-dwell to become stronger, but to dwell to make everyone stronger with me.
Okay. Uplifting the community.
Yes.
Uplifting the community. Miss Universe.
Okay, next
Pero lagi,
siya.
uplifting that it must be nga dili lang ikaw ang maka-benefit, tanan, kitang tanan ang maka-benefit. Ikaw, Neo,
Habitualizing goodness.
habit, that is justice for you.
That is just, gikan na siya ni Aristotle. Ako sang ikwan ka jud si Aristotle na in order for you to be a good person, there must be a habit. Dapat sa bata pa lang ta kay na-inculturate or na-engrave na bitaw sa ato nga mauni sakto aya kay na magoy uban nga makabalo pa ta what is good when dako na ta. So, in order for us to be a good citizen as well as to be a good person, there must be a habit, no? Dapat nabutan na siya sa tuwa because if kabalo ta nga mo ni sakto, mo ni buhaton na to. So, for me, no, justice is doing good of course for the people of to for the betterment of the society.
Okay. To put light to it, for you, justice is adhering to what is upheld as good.
So what is good? Kung
What is good?
Sige, tama, Day.
Oppose
Sige.
pa siya.
Okay, Ruela.
For me lang, short lang siya, justice is not always centered about self-interest, but it is also of what's morally correct for the community, for the people. Like, what it's okay to focus, it's okay to consider the self-interest of everyone, but it's also a big solution for conflict na hunahunahon nimong unsay kaayuhan sa tanan, dili lang ang imuhang kagustuhan kundi kaayuhan para sa tanan. Kay if makuha ra nimo kung unsay mong gusto, nakuha ba sa tanan ang kaayuhan, like mara pud na ang justice for me.
Okay. Okay. Wala pa kakain, wala pa
Ako
ka. Wala pa ka dai.
Ako na lang sa
Sige, ikaw na lang sa.
Kuan.
Kay malimot do niya.
Same with ni Rowella, though like dili justice itself does not kuan kanang dili iano ang ato ang self-interest. If kung unsay better for the society, though dili na siya like kanang murag sitog ano kanang dili na siya kanang
Dili ka maka-make sure if maayo ba jud
oo,
para sa
ganang
tanan.
Pero what if be ang imong kaugalingon ang ma-compromise for the goodness of others? Would you still do it?
Mo pud no.
Wala na
Dili
tong
ka
ring
make
of
sense.
ano.
person.
Musunod
If
dito
more
ang
Ring of
Fire.
Gauges. Na if like visible ka,
reference na mo sir, mo RRL na mo.
If given the opportunity.
Never question ng RRL.
Very question.
na walay consequences,
Sige.
would you still
Thank
do?
you. Motoy mo ha.
Okay, last. Ikaw.
Ikaw. Like, kuan lang, like, ang like, justice na good is for, like, good good siya sa people, sa society. Pero diba, may mga drawbacks if even good siya for the people kay kanang naadya po yung part nga injustice gihapon siya. So, ang justice para sa ko is like, more siya kanang like, nako sa in-between sa
Neutrality,
neutrality.
impartiality. Oh, go.
Kinsa pa man line na liti na niya.
Mga sinuni.
Like, neutral lang ang justice good. Like, you do good for people, then you do good for yourself. Like very, kuan lang din siya sa society good. Society is neutral.
More on compromises lang siya.
Okay. You gave us Daghan ko.
Very fruitful.
Well, really, you shared to us a very insightful idea of your own idea of justice, and of also coming from the ideas that we read from the material. As for me, justice is trying not to do injustice. I think for me, di ba self interested yun ta, we try to idealize unsa day ang good, unsa day tama. Pero as for me, justice is focusing on not doing injustice. Because if you are only centered on what is good, oy mas maayo ni, pero not really trying to see what's going to be justice to the what's going to be injustice. I think for me, medyo na-drawback yun siya. Pero sumonang para sa ako nga, to think of justice is to consider what's going to be injustice. Never question, sir.
Never question.
Uy, wala pa kita nag-goodbye. Wala pa
Ay, mag-goodbye pa na. Ano mo ko na okay na?
Wala pa.
Gizun pa dyan akong nawa.
Okay.
Grabe
So I
naman.
hope na naka-arouse ang atong naka-arouse ang erotic dili na intellectual arouseness.
Intellectual stimulation.
Like na-stimulate ang atong intellectual side ani with this conversation, and fruitful siya kay mas na-delve yun nato og maayo ang atong material, and we touches on the important things nga gi-offer sa ato with the philosophers, and also trying to see ambiguities, contradiction, and really just scrutinizing the idea. And I hope nga mag-continue pa niya ang atong learning sa mga muabutay pa na mga challenges. And that's it. Thank you so much.
Fish for life! Okay!